I hope it's a good one.
Yeah. Sweet Melissa. Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, how's it going?
You're still off the grid in Colorado?
Yeah, still here. I dressed up today and I put on makeup, so I feel like myself.
Yes, you look gorgeous. You look gorgeous.
Nice to see you all.
Hi, Laura. Welcome, everybody. Well, hey, Miss Julie. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to let other people just pop on because we do have a fantastic speaker today, and I'm going to introduce her a little bit later on. But when I was preparing for this group today, I was doing YouTubes. I'm always listening to iPods, and like, what can I learn today? What can I learn today? So one of the things that I asked the girls, my technical geniuses, if they could put on a clip. It's about 8 minutes of Glenn Doyle being interviewed by Reese Witherspoon, because Reese Witherspoon does a book study, has done a book club with her book as well. And she gives a really good, of course she would because she wrote the book, but she gave a really good definition of touch. Was it called the touch tree? Was that what it was called? Touch tree. Thank you, Cynthia.
She talked about that, yeah.
Always can use a thumbs up. So if you, and then we'll introduce our speaker and then we'll go from there. So if you can hit it, my technical geniuses, let's go for it.
Got it, Mama Cheetah.
Yeah, they always call me Mama Cheetah.
Love it.
Okay, so we're gonna. Here it says. Oh, yeah, the opens. Just a quick technical moment. Click that. Janelle's gonna grab her computer.
Okay.
Like 2 minutes.
I just got this computer and I don't know how it works really well yet, so
Okay.
she's gonna help us.
Before we get that on, we are, oops, here it comes.
Oh, we got it.
Yay, right.
Good job. We're goddamn cheetahs. We'll figure out it.
For a conversation that I had with Glennon about where she found the inspiration to write this book, how she got through so many difficult periods of her life. I also just want to say thank you so much for being part of this community. It means so much to me to know that you guys are enjoying these books. So here is our conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it.
There she is. So by the way, your community is so freaking amazing. All I'm doing is like reading every single comment. They're so thoughtful. I'm loving them. So is my sister.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. They will love to hear that. Well, you do talk about so much in this book is about what we learned, what makes a woman, what makes a mother, what makes a good partner, what does her sexuality look like, what does her faith look like, what is her self-talk like, what are her highest goals, and you really free a lot of people with the idea that you get to define those things for yourself. You know, one of the best stories I think about this book is about how you met Abby, and I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about those feelings and what that time was like.
You want me to talk about Abby and feelings? Those are like my two jams. I'm so happy. Okay. So I'm going to tell you the actual whole story that happened the night we met, which is like most of it's in the book, but I didn't know how to write this one certain part. So I was doing my first event for the Untamed. I'm so sorry, for Love Warrior. And I was sitting around a big long table, bunch of other writers. I didn't know any of them, and we were like trying to make small talk, and I was talking to this children's author, and she stopped talking and she looked over at the doorway. So I stopped talking and looked at the doorway.
You had actually gone out.
There was this woman, and she was 2 feet tall.
Yeah. So I'm listening.
She was wearing this black trench coat, gray trench coat, and this red scarf, and she had these Caribbean sea blue eyes. And there was something so, like, she looked like a woman and a man and like beyond both. And the whole room was just staring at her. Reese, here's the part I didn't put in the book. Okay, I'm gonna try to enact this for you. Every bone in my body just says the words, there she is. And then I stood up, okay? Everyone around the table is sitting, we're all looking at Abby, and I stand up and open my arms like this. Yes, I did. This is what I did. And then I look down at my body, and now I'm standing up like this. And Abby's staring at me because, like, had the Queen of England just walked in the room, it would have been extra, right? So then I have to figure out how am I going to sit back down. So Reese, I bowed like this, like hoping that maybe she would think that was like a weird writer's way of greeting people. Like, so weird. It's so weird. This is our best party story. Okay, it's even better when Abby tells it. You have to have her tell the story. Yeah, I mean, Reese, it was like I was feeling myself for the first time, right? Like, and the way I knew that is because I wanted Abby, and it was the first time I had wanted anything beyond what I had been conditioned to want. And it was the first time I had loved anyone beyond the people who I had been expected to love. And also, everybody in my life, people who loved me, people who worked with me, were all going, no. Really? And I was still going, yeah, right? Like, that's how you know, right? But I think I understood that I was going to either have to abandon myself again, because I knew this is really happening. Like, I'm really in love with this person. And it was deeper than that for me.
One thing I also loved about your book was you called it Touch Trees, and that maybe you could talk a little bit about that, but I love the part where you say your touch tree and what it's made of.
When you get really lost, okay, when a person is really lost in the woods, then her main goal has to be to get found. And the best way to get found is to stay in one place. If you are lost in the woods, you cannot stay in one place because you have to go out and like forage for food. The best thing you can do is to find a touch tree. And what a touch tree is it's one big recognizable tree that you can keep coming back to again and again, all right? And this perpetual returning keeps you from getting too far gone, okay? Every single time I have been lost, it is because I have made something other than myself my touch tree.
Right.
I have made a relationship or an institution or a goal or an ideal or whatever, all of the other things we are that we chase, right? And what I figured out is nobody else knows what we're supposed to do. Every one of our lives is a completely unprecedented and completely unrepeatable experiment. We're constantly looking outside of ourselves for answers, but that is exactly like asking people for directions to places they've never been. The only thing I know at all is that nobody else knows what I should do. What I can do is over and over again, get still and return to myself, because when I do, when I get quiet enough, there's always some kind of knowing that rises up. And it's not words, it's just more like a nudge that will always point me towards the next right thing.
I love that we have these inner resources that you call it your touch tree, and it's an accumulation of the things that you've gone through. And you think of it as it's all the good and it's all the bad and all the people you've loved and all the people who've left you and all the people who came in and went out. And it's so beautiful to think that your life is composed of something so complex. I want to ask you a couple questions from readers too. Okay, this is a fan question. In the book, you talk about letting go of control. You share a story about how you kept trying to control Abby's behaviors, but you came to the conclusion that control is the opposite of love. How were you able to let go of control?
Here's what happened. This sort of control kind of thing that I've always done in my previous relationships, I kind of got away with it, I gotta tell you. And what happened one night is that she noticed that I was doing the little manipulative things that I do, and I think people don't know that I'm planting my ideas. And And she got really vulnerable and honest. She's very good at communicating. And she said, I can feel it when you're doing that thing. I can feel it when you don't like my thing, so you're trying to control it. And it really makes me feel like you don't trust me. And that hurts my feelings because I trust you so much. And I want you to trust me. And I was like, wow. It struck me completely in a different way. I just realized, oh, here I am fighting to be untamed. You know, like I want to live by my own knowing and my own imagination, my own intuition. But if I'm going to live that way, then I have to trust the people in my life to have their own knowing and their own feeling and their own imagination, right? And so what I realized is that I can love Abby or I can control Abby, but I can't do both because love requires trust, right? And we only control things that we don't trust.
I think also the give and take of relationships is so beautiful if you find a beautiful balance there. And that's the ultimate goal, right? To be seen, to be held and free. Your book has just fed my touch tree all month. I love all the great work you do. I love the beautiful words and metaphors that you put on pages that break people's hearts open. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Reese, for being you.
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Reese. Thank you, Book Club.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Great.
Okay, bye, honey. Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for watching the video.
Okay.
Okay, wasn't that great? I just thought it was just a great clip. And if you get anything out of this book club, anything out of the book Untamed, it's about coming home to and your touch tree and living that fully and completely and authentically. And then having women friends that say, you're in the woods, go back to your touch tree, go back to what you know inside of you. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that touch tree. And our speaker today is Cathy Brennan, and she is an entrepreneur and an author, and she has written a book, So Now What, which I had, and I got a couple of books for my kids. And she is also a speaker. And so I introduced her to this book, and she began to explode in good ways, and just like I did. And so I asked her to speak on a few things from some of the chapters that you might have read this week or this last month. So Cathy, it was an honor to have you with us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I am just soaking up all this female energy. I just love the giggling. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I live in such a male world. That's just a blessing to my soul. I watched the Amy and Janelle videotaped or recorded your session 2 weeks ago when Diana spoke, and I watched it and I took notes, and I was just like, there are so many of you that I want to know personally. There were so many good things being said. Diana, I think you're there. You're brilliant. You really are brilliant. And I just want to get into your soul and know so much more about you. So it's so neat. Thank you for introducing me, Hope. Like she said, I'm a writer. And so, oh my goodness, this book, I think she says somewhere that words are her tools, and they're so good. Laugh out loud, funny, poignant, insightful, brilliant. So I'm just a little bit in awe of that. I'll also say, I want to just say a few more things about myself so you know what the lens I'm looking through, so you understand my memos, which we're going to talk about memos. I'm a Christian, so that has meant many different things, and it's evolved over time. I think I came out of the womb just aware that God exists and completely fine with that. But it changed as I became a young adult. It changed when I got married, changed when I became a parent, and now I'm an empty nester. And I thrive on questions. That's why I wrote the book title, So Now What? And God and I've had questions of him. Sometimes we've had debates that have lasted literally years. So I don't come to things easily. I'm constantly questioning. I just wanted you to know that that's who I am. And so that's where why these memos were so difficult. I'm also an athlete. I started running about 9 years ago, and I've had some success with that. But more importantly than anything, I'm a depression survivor. Yes, I'm a depression survivor. Took a long time, 35 years. And what happened was the doctors couldn't help me because it wasn't simply a medical thing. And the counselors couldn't help me because it wasn't simply a mental health thing. And the church couldn't help me because it wasn't simply a spiritual thing. It was really all of them. So I scream from the mountaintops. I want to talk all about depression and what it is and what it takes to get over it, because I did it. So I just want to tell you that that's where I come from. I turned 60 a couple months ago. The birthday week wasn't anything like I planned it to be, but here I am. It's great. And I'm completely humbled to be here. I'm just spouting my ideas and my thoughts, but I have a story as if each one of you do. So I'm going to say some things and then I want to hear from you too. So I wanted to start by reading because, oh boy. Oh, she's so good. Oh my goodness. We're going to start on memos. And I wanted to read what I just was delighted by. This is the moment you have been waiting for your entire life. When the hole in your heart is filled, finally become complete. If after I put this child in your arms, you sense anything other than utter fulfillment, seek counseling immediately. After you've hung up with the counselor, call a tutor. Since we've been speaking for 3 minutes, your child is already behind. Have you registered her for Mandarin classes yet? Parenting is your religion within which you will find salvation. This child is your savior. Convert or be damned. We will wait until you cancel all other life endeavors. Thank you. She goes on to say, every one of her days on earth will be like Disneyland, but better. When she gets into trouble at school, call her teacher and explain loudly that your child does not make mistakes. Do not ever let a drop of rain fall on your child's fragile head. Your life is over, and your new existence is about ensuring that her life never begins. Godspeed. We got a terrible memo. Oh, those are just such great words. She just speaks so well. And I don't know if you can relate to that memo. Maybe your memo was different depending on your age. Mine was similar to that. So I wanted to talk about memos, and I'm going to read some of my memos. Maybe you can relate to them because it's important to tell our story. And what is going to be important for each, and I'm going to tell you this a couple times, you need to write your memos down. You really need to write them. And then you need to read them. And I did this for today and realized how much value there is in that. And some of them are really difficult to follow. And it hurts to even read the memos. But what I think is happening with these memos, many of us have them and we've put them in a drawer and we pretend we never got them, even though we're living by what's in the memos. So one of the surprising things that happened when I started this is I wrote memos because this is what I do in business. I know how to write a memo. There's a to, you writing it to someone. It comes from someone. There's a date on it. and then it says regarding. That's how you format a memo. To, from, date, and regarding. So I'm going to read a couple of my memos and tell you a little bit what about them. My first memo is to Cathy. It's for mom and dad, the American culture, the church, and what I observed. All of those people, even including myself, wrote the memo. The date is April 25th, 1960, the date I was born. Until I quit listening, and the memo is regarding your self-worth. I have several bullet points. If someone doesn't love you, you're unlovable. If someone treats you poorly, you deserve it. If your life is difficult, you can blame someone else for it. Your mom was depressed, you will be too, forever and ever, until kingdom comes. We, the writers, will determine your self-worth. And your self-worth is subject to constant criticism. That's the memo I got. Maybe yours was similar, maybe it was different. The second one I got is to me, and it's from my dad. It's from all men and American culture. I also got it on my birthday, April 25th, 1960, and it lasts until I die. And it's regarding men. You are not as good as the boys. You were created to be a helper for men. You cannot challenge male authority because men are smarter than you. Men have more wisdom than you. Men get the final word. And our world exists because men see it this way.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing they don't know. There's nothing you can teach them. And you must believe men because, like the memo says, they're always right. Now, I've had this memo before and I've ripped it up. I've gotten mad, I've burned it, I've crumpled it up, I've thrown it out the door. And you know what? It keeps showing up on my desk again. It just shows up again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm realizing that I'm having trouble getting rid of this memo. I'm having trouble with it. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later too. Another memo is from the church. I got this one in 1982 when I began to really take my faith seriously. And it's about women in the church. And I'm going to add my glasses here because that makes it a little easier. Women do not belong in leadership in the church. This is the memo I got. In Proverbs 31, it says, her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. My memo said, you're a good Christian if your children bless you. And you're a good Christian if your husband blesses you. And my memo said this part only applies to women. Men aren't held to the same standard. You're not to use your personality or physical appearance in the service of God. Only your undying devotion is what we need. All we need is your devotion. And make sure you look pretty and appropriate and desirable, but not too desirable. This was a very confusing memo. This memo also went on to say, from the church, you have certain roles to fill, including childcare, communicating feelings, volunteering regardless of whether or not you have the time or energy, and serving hot dishes at funerals. It's ungodly to be bold. It's ungodly to be passionate. It's selfish and ungodly to pursue your goals. And the final one was, the Virgin Mary is white. I don't know. That was in my memo. Then I want to tell you about the one I got on feelings that I wrote myself. This is to Cathy and from Cathy. I wrote it in about 1974, just reaching puberty, and it was about feelings. And it says, when you disagree, you must get angry. Yes, anger is your only option because things are black and white. Feelings are not to be discussed. You're depressed and you feel a lot. That means something's wrong with you. And your feelings don't matter because other people are more important than you. You must fall in line with other people's feelings. To do less is selfish. I was thinking about these memos and then I realized I've gotten some really good ones too. I'm sure all of you have too. I got a really good memo from my girlfriends. This memo started in 1973, again, that kind of tender age, 13, 14. And they sent me a memo about me. They said, it's about you. This is what my girlfriend said. I love you for who you are. You don't have to prove yourself. I can't always be there for you because I'm dealing with my own life, but I always love you. I want to help you have a happy life. You're amazing. You're admirable. You inspire me. I love to talk to you. I care deeply for you. Sometimes I can tell something's wrong and wonder, are you ready to share it with me?
Hello?
It hurts when we
Yeah.
disagree.
I got a book
I
thing
love you.
online, a book club. Online, yep. Yeah. You got to mute, Gail. Oh,
So I thought it would be, those are just some of my memos, and maybe it got you to thinking about your own memos. I got some from my parents, some from culture. I got one from my girlfriends. Most of them had people who had power over me. So I thought it would be useful for us to talk about where we got our memos. If you start thinking about your own, where did you get them from?
anybody want to share?
Well, this is, I was raised in a Christian church also, and I was raised Catholic, and at that time we didn't study the Bible. We had catechism, and I wasn't a very good student. So I always thought that Virgin Mary was the only person on earth that was required to be a virgin. You know, I was shocked, you know, when other women were being judged and criticized for, you know, having sexual relationships, and they were called all these nasty, horrible things because, you know, that wasn't the message. That's not how I saw it. But it's like, you know, everybody, all my friends and, you know, the whole world saw it from that, you know, direction. But I didn't, you know, I just thought, well, you know, she was asked to, you know, bring this baby into the world. And so So that was how I viewed things at the time. And then it was interesting when you said that you were a depression survivor. I am as well. And I had attended this women's group, and I had was introducing myself, and I said, well, I am an incest survivor. And one of the girls, women next to me said, you know, I'm suggesting that you don't do that to yourself, because you're taking it on as part of your identity, saying, I am an incest survivor. She said, I suggest that, you know, when you talk about that subject, that you just say, I've experienced that, or that has been an experience of mine, you know, in my life, rather than taking it on as who you are, because that's not who I am. You know, I'm separate from that. That to me is a story in my past. It's an old story, and I don't identify it with it anymore. However, I still struggle with, you know, I have my depressing moments, but it's not who I am. And so I don't know, it really helped me look at things from a different perspective. And if that helps anybody else, just wanted to share that.
Cool. So it sounds like you were writing some of your own memos. Like this is what people were telling you, that calling women all these bad names, but you were like, no, not, yeah. You were kind of writing it yourself.
Well, I wrote it myself, but I also believe them. You know, I mean, I got beaten for 10 years because I was a whore and you know, a douchebag and a million gazillion other things. And I believed it. You know, I was a slow learner, but it took me getting choked to leave that relationship. So, but it's an old story. It's not who I am, you know.
Sorry for that pain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's old though. It's not who I am. It was an experience.
Where else did people get the memos from?
Cynthia?
Hi, this is Anne. I got my memos from my mom and my grandmother. But, you know, when you were asking whether we got memos or whether we helped write the memos ourselves, I think I probably did. But definitely from my mom and my grandmother. And they were similar to some of the ones that you got, but probably more about the women's role. Oh, well, how a good girl should act, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting to me is I got, you know, the same memos everybody else got too, but I had a memo that I started saying at a very young age that I forgot about till I read this book. And it was at a very young age, I started saying, when I grow up, I'm not going to get married. And if I have a child, I will have one, and she will be a girl. And no one in my family expected anything different from me, because from a very young age, like that was, and it was all together. It was a complete, it wasn't just part of the memo. It was, I would repeat the whole memo together. But the book reminded me of that memo.
Cool.
Oh, I have one more thing to add. The book, I guess I had heard about it from Janice, and she was telling me that she just loved it. And so I always felt that I was untamed growing up, that, you know, And that's what made me feel different, or like the black sheep of the family, as many of us do. But where am I going with this? Oh, my mom would say to me, I hope when you grow up, you have 5 girls just like you, you know. And I laughed because I said, well, then I'll be able to understand them. So, yeah. You know.
I love that kind of strong little girl energy that I heard from both of you. This is what I thought, or this is what I believed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I always believed, but it took me many, many years to act on it, you know, to be able to follow your instincts. And
how about one more person? Does one more person have, like, give us where you got the memos? Because I think it's good to share that.
There's no escaping the memos that we got from popular culture, television, magazines that might have come into our house, or you know, that were at friends' houses, the popular music. I'm 68, so I remember my father loved watching Gunsmoke and God, those Western, a lot of the Western shows. But there was also Leave It to Beaver, Ozzie and Harriet, those so family.
Pearls, yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, not having a family that looked, well, while we were white and middle class, we, you know, my mom didn't wear an apron and heels, and my dad wasn't in a suit at dinner, but, you know, so it made me feel like we weren't quite normal, and I wanted to be normal. So those, you know, you can't escape the influence of the culture.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a really good point. And I know other people have that too. So just keep thinking about where you got those memos, because it's important where they came from. So the next question I have is, why did we take them? Like, why did I take these memos? Now I thought, well, I thought I had to. I'm kind of compliant by nature, and that was valued in our home. So I thought I had to take the memos. I saw my mother's taking, I only have one, my mother taking memos, my sister's taking memos. So I thought I needed to do that too. And as it turns out, I'm just wired way differently than any of them. My dad told me to take the memo because he believed them. And I wanted to succeed in life, so I took them. I wanted to be liked. And ultimately, I think I took them because I wanted to be accepted more than I wanted to be my own person. I took those as a child because I wanted to be accepted. And then I kept taking them as a teenager, and I probably even kept taking them as a young adult. Maybe right now I'm just starting to not take it. I don't know. So I'm wondering if people have any other thoughts about why we took it. Like, why did we buy into that? Why do we do it today? You know, why do we look at popular culture and take that in? If you do, maybe you're not, but why do we take the memos?
I think our society lots of times pressures us into taking it because as many of you know that you know, if you're a rebel with the cause and you break the status quo, then you're looked at as strange or weird, or and that there's a lot of pressure when you break the memo and not take the memo anymore. And so one of the things in the book she talks about is that when you stop taking some of those memos, you're going to lose friends, you're going to lose, have to say bye to certain people, certain places, certain things, because they want you to take the memo. And I think that it's really scary, and we don't have enough support in that. We don't have enough support in, like, high five, you're not taking that memo any longer.
I love that, Hope, and even kind of pointing out, do you get that you're buying into this? You know, strong, because women will see it in other women more than a man could see it. You know, we can see maybe where we're taking an unhealthy memo, and then it takes a good friendship to point it out or help through or whatever. Yeah. You certainly got a great tribe right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I decided it's okay to divorce friends. Yeah, I was telling my husband, I know that doesn't make sense, but I decided I can divorce friends that want me to take a certain memo, even their memo, and it's not my memo, it's your memo, it's not my memo, and they don't like me, and so I divorce people. I lovingly divorce people, but I do divorce people who don't contribute to my wild and vivacious energy that's a mystery and meant to be out there.
Well, and Hope, you've taught me reason, season, lifetime with friends. And you know, my energy varies upon that. So that's really good advice. In terms of the question around why do we abide by the memo, I think that there's a cyclical thing. For me, it's like one of the memos is you need to care what people think. And then that's the enforcer. Like I'm always watching, what do people think? What do people think? What do people think? So it's like this vicious cycle. And in the book, what's inspiring to me is she keeps going back to the Untamed principle, as well as she needs to be accountable to herself above all else, above her children, above Abby, above her ex. And that to me is groundbreaking. I just don't read that anywhere else. And that has been really helpful to me.
I love that too, because it calls us to be responsible for it. I think sometimes we can hide behind our femininity as if somebody else is going to handle it or something. So I love what you're saying. Like I'm accountable for my own actions and thoughts. And yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, just adding to that too. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's like, I think for a long time, we almost thought we had to ask for permission. And now it's like, yeah, screw that. I don't have to ask for permission. And I don't know if that's because I'm in my 50s now, but I see my daughters and I see them with this, I'll do what I want kind of attitude, or I can think what I want, or, you know, things like that, where I would always be so worried about, oh, what are people going to think? What are people going to say? And they're just different.
I like that a lot. And isn't that beautiful? Yeah, that's neat.
I would also say, if I can, if you don't,
sure.
I would also say that culture really squishes the role models that we have. And sometimes the role models that we have for people who are not asking permission aren't people that we see very often. They might be in other cultures, they might be in other parts of the world, but American culture doesn't like people who we can follow as role models, who say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Especially they don't like women who say, this is what I'm going to do. This is where I'm going. I think about when I was a child in the 70s and, you know, feminism and the first wave was kind of coming and going, and somebody gave me a book that said, girls are people too. And I was like, yeah, of course girls are people, because I hadn't been taught anything else. But then all of that disappeared in the 80s, and we all went back to a whole different kind of model of what women are and what women should be. And so I think that once the resurgence keeps going, whether it's Glennon or Abby or whoever or us, when we have more role models like Lynette's daughters who say, you know what, I'm going to do what I want to do, then that becomes easier. When we have people to follow, when we have people who are also doing it, then we can do it too.
Yeah, I love that.
So I have a thought, and that is, I probably am a little older than some of you. I was a product of more of the 50s, and there were many, many, many memos that I received in school. But do you know what? I don't know if I was wired differently, if it was my DNA, but there were so many times I just said, the hell with that. I can't buy that I can't be an altar boy, or that I could just make a list of them. And so I haven't had to struggle very much with that, because I think I've struggled with it with other people, knowing that I kind of am my own person. And I wonder about that. And as you talk about memos, I can see them, but I just couldn't take them in. That interesting.
I love that. I love that spirit, Laura, because I would not, this is just my opinion. I would not call you a harsh woman or like way out of the box. You have a certain grace to me and gentleness, and you're like, to hell with the memos. I love that. Like, it's this great place to be. And I just wanted to comment on the speaker before. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, about not having role models and stuff. One of the biggest things I got out of this book was the story when she talked about, she walked by her friend's classroom and there was a sign that said, "We can do hard things." And I have been saying that to myself over and over and over again. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. And it's interesting, like, why wouldn't I even think that I can? So that was like another memo I had, that women, like, we're somehow more frail or fragile and can't do these hard things. So yeah, it's really telling to go there and just to write it down. So that was kind of my next point. I don't want to rush us too much, but I want to get to Sela also. I really encourage you to write down your memos. There is just a whole lot of value, and make sure you write who it's to, who it's from, what's the date, and what it's regarding. It'll be really helpful for you, because we can't change what we don't acknowledge. If we don't really see it in black and white, we can't look at it and say, "Ooh, this is wrong." And we sometimes think, well, I know why I'm motivated to do things. But so much of this, I believe, is in our unconscious or our non-conscious minds. We haven't brought it up. We haven't written it down. And so we haven't really faced it. And it's ruling our lives only because we're not aware of it. So it's a really good practice to do that. And then kind of what was mentioned before is we can help each other with our memos. Like, we can point out and help, and we don't need to jump in and give everyone advice, but a close friend might ask, "What, did you see something here?" And so I think that's very helpful. And certainly a book like this just does a lot for us to put to bed some of these ideas that aren't serving us well. We need to evaluate the memos. Maybe they were even true at a time, or they worked then, but they don't work now. So we need to just look at that. And it's also important to forgive the memo writer. And this is what I mean. My dad loved me. He loved me. He did the best he could with the skills he had. He absolutely thought he was protecting me from the big bad world by putting me in a box and not letting me do things. It doesn't help me to go on in my life and be angry because he wrote that memo. That's the memo he thought. Then as an adult, I get to read it and either take it or put it away or throw it in the recycling. So I think it's important to it's not about the memo writer, it's about us. And Hope and I have been talking a lot about looking inward, especially at this time. So we need to write our own memos. We need to do our own narrative based on what we know is true right now. And that all comes from what's referred to as the knowing or the whisper. I refer to it as the spirit. So much is in us, and we know that. And someone alluded to it earlier. We need to trust that. We need to listen to it and hear it. And get those, write the new memos. I just, I said I have a hard time getting rid of that man one. And I was thinking about that, and realized it doesn't work for me to get rid of a memo because I'm mad about it. It doesn't really do any good to just rip it up. I need to get rid of it because I understand that we're doing it a new way now. And I was thinking about at work, you know, I've had 25 years of writing memos. So I go through old files and I pull out things, and I can easily throw a lot of them away because we're just not doing it that way. That employee has left. We've got new policies. So I was thinking about that. If it's easy at work because I know we're just doing it a different way. So when we can listen to ourselves and know we're just doing it a different way, we can just get rid of the old memo. We can just get rid of it. It's not useful anymore. And I was thinking about, if it keeps showing up on my desk again, then it's up to me to figure out why that keeps showing up again. Again, I get stuck when I blame the memo writer. I need to just figure out, why does that keep showing up? Like, what is that? Does anyone have any comments or thoughts?
Well, my husband hates Dr. Phil, but but Dr. Phil always says you train people how to treat you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I always love that line, and I believe that, because if you don't have boundaries, and if you aren't a gutsy, stormy woman, and if you put your tail between your legs and start running away, and so I think that until we, let's say, unacceptable is unacceptable is unacceptable, then you don't get trained anymore. Then you don't get trained. But I think that we train people how to treat us until we say, no, can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. But you know, Diana, I would really like to ask you a question. And you, Cathy, you probably seen this too. It's so amazing because we always preface it like, now that I am older, I don't know, maybe I'm this way now because I'm older. And I want to help every young woman not to have to put that little preface in front of them. And I know it takes time to wake up, but I noticed that we say, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just gotten older. Maybe. Do you have a comment about that, Diana?
I do. And, you know, one of the things that strikes me, because my daughter-in-law's found her voice within the last 6 months and really gets a lot of flack for it. I mean, because she's kind of naming things as she sees them. And I think one of the things that we can do, and what also keeps us from our voice, is whether or not we have each other's backs. You know, because I try to be really conscious of responding to the places where she's putting herself out there. She started doing Wednesdays provocative questions on race relations. You know, and she's gotten some real flack because she lives in Memphis, Miss Redneck country. But she just feels like that's a part of her calling. But it's interesting to follow how many people have her back and how many people are just quiet. It's a thought.
Cathy, do you have a thought on that? Do you notice that? Because I noticed.
Well, I do. I remember reading the 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Always do your best and don't make assumptions. And I thought, where has this book been? Like, it just changed my life. And I thought, if I had read that when I was 30, would I even have gotten it? And I don't think I would have, only because I was immature and I didn't have anyone to help me and role models. So I don't think it's necessarily age. I would say it's maturity, and that is, yeah. And so I like want to scream at everyone who's 30, around 30, like, yeah, I'm going to help you here. Like, please just listen to me so you don't have to go through all of the garbage and then figure it out later. Let's just figure it out now, because you have lots of energy, you have lots of creativity. Yeah. So I don't think it has to be old. It's just maturity.
Can I just jump in with a thought? So I don't know how many of you have seen the movie On the Basis of Sex about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And there's this scene where she and her daughter, who clearly got a memo that said, I don't have to give a damn and I'm not putting up with it. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right, this brilliant legal mind and this tiny little dynamite package, got a memo that said, you know, how a lady behaves. And she became, I think, very untamed, but she didn't look it. And so there's a scene where they're like getting cat calls, and the daughter's like, you know, and she's yelling back at him. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg is just standing there. I mean, you kind of see this longing, like she wants to swear and be rowdy, but you also see like, yeah, I'll just meet you in the courtroom or in public policy and we'll fix it there. So I think sometimes that generation, though, that kind of solid self-knowing wrote a different memo for the 30-year-old. So I mean, I applaud those of you, and I include myself in that group now, that got to write some memos for younger women that say something a little different. I'm so appreciative of that, and of the women who don't have to yell and scream. They do it a different way. I'm glad to have them and have their back too.
Yeah, good thoughts. Good thoughts. Oh boy, we could just go on with that. I want to get to Sila, because this is another great concept. And I'm going to read again. Let's see if I can quickly get there. Just because her words, oh my gosh, I'm in awe of how delightful this is to read. It was in the chapter on vows, is where she talked about Sila. Sila is found in the Hebrew Bible 74 times. Scholars believe that when it appears in the text, it is a direction to the reader to stop reading and be still for a moment, because the previous idea is important enough to consider deeply. The poetry in scripture is meant to transform, and the scribe knows that change begins through reading, but can be completed only in quiet contemplation. It's believed to be a signal to the music director, to the silence, the choir for a long moment, to hold space between notes. The silence, of course, is where the music sits in. Sila is the nothingness just before the big bang of a woman exploding into a new universe. You're having a girl. My eyes widened like a camera lens adjusting to a blast of light. I sat on the couch, phone still in hand, wordless, motionless. Thank you, I finally said to the receptionist. Thank you. I love you. Bye. I hung up and called my sister. Sister, we're having a girl. We are having a girl. Wait, she said, what? How did you find out? Did they accidentally tell you? Yes, after I accidentally asked. She's just so delightful. So Sila. It's this holy silence. There have been, Silas. I thought of a few Sila moments that I know of. 9/11, it was a Sila. We stopped. We thought, what does this mean? When my sister called and said that our dad had passed away, It was a Selah moment. What does that mean? It's important enough that you have to stop and consider it. The first time I had a child, didn't know what it was going to be. It's a boy. It's a boy. What does that mean? I got to stop and consider it. It's important. One time our son gave us some difficult news. It was a Selah moment for me. What does this mean? This pandemic is definitely a Selah moment. It's been kind of forced. It's a forced stopping. It's a forced pause. Okay, everybody go home and stay in your house and just wait till we figure out what's going to go on. It's a forced moment like no other. And now with the unrest, with the murder of George Floyd and the riots, to me, that's a Selah moment. Wait, what does this mean? There seems to be an element of surprise. Like maybe we're surprised because we didn't want to hear it. Like your dad passed away. Maybe it's just outside the realm of our thinking. Like, wait, what? 2 planes crashed into buildings and they went crashing down? It's just beyond what we've ever imagined. It might be just so hard to believe, like the murder of George Floyd, but we could see it on a video. So it's good to consider, like, why is it the Selah moment? Like, what is it in me that makes this a surprise? What is it that makes it a moment where I have to stop and consider? I'm going to ask you that. What kinds of things do you put around, like, yeah, this causes the Selah moment? It's a surprise.
I think an awareness, this is Lynette, I think it's an awareness over time that you don't really see it happening, but there's one thing that triggers your final moment where you have your Selah moment and go, oh, okay, now I get it. I don't know if that's a Virgo thing or if that's a female thing where we just try, you work things out, you push things down, you deny it. And then all of a sudden, but you have pieces of clarity throughout it. And then your Selah moment comes when it's just one little thing that causes it for total awareness.
Okay, that's good, Lynette. Do you have an example? Because this is good. I was thinking of big,
oh, you really
momentous thing, but I like what you're saying. What do you have an example of that?
Example? All right, I will tell you. My example was, and Hope knows my history of being in a pretty abusive relationship for lots of years. And my Selah moment happened when my ex-husband was in the hospital because he was having kidney stone issues, but also was drug seeking at the same time. And he was supposed to be getting prepped for surgery, and I walked in and he wasn't getting prepped for surgery, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? You're supposed to be having surgery in like 10 minutes. And there was an RN behind me, and he said really loudly with the RN there, don't you come walking in here acting like my queen bee telling me what to do again. And I went, oh, guess what? Your queen bee is leaving. And I left and I never looked back. But it was clarity over time. And it was just that one thing which he freely did in the open in front of somebody outside of our immediate circle that I went, oh, done.
Mm-hmm. I get that. That's good. Anyone else have like a principle or a specific about a Selah moment of the surprise, how it comes about?
I had one very, very similar to that experience where I had been dating someone for a period of time, and we got in a disagreement over the phone, and he said to me, "You hear me and you hear me good." And I heard myself saying, well, that's not going to be possible because I'm hanging up. And that was my moment of like, it was clarity over time. Suddenly I realized I'm telling this person I'm teaching them how to treat me, and I don't deserve to be treated like this. And that was really the moment. Whether that relationship happened or not was irrelevant. It was that moment where I realized I don't deserve to be treated like that. That was my Selah moment.
I like this. Anyone else? These are good.
We could talk about a Selah moment for us. It was when our mom died. Like, we knew it was coming, but we didn't know when it was going to happen. And it was like, bam, Selah moment. And Hope was there for that Selah moment. But like, too, like, I'm thinking about like, what do we do with our Selah moments after they happen, you know? Because that Selah moment changes our whole life. Our whole life.
It changes your course. It's almost like divine over humanness in that moment, because it's like, you know, you just hear what, and you feel that your entire course is going to change in that one moment, that you can't have a human experience with it. It's so spiritual. It just consumes you. Selah.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. That's just tender. There also seems to be something creative about the Selah moment. The fact that it's in the Psalms and poetry and music. I thought there's something creative in it. And we are all creative. I know that, and I'm preaching to the choir there. I would bet all of you say, of course we're creative. A lot of people don't believe they are. But, and what I wanted to say is, what I know about creation is it takes time. So in writing my book, it takes time, and it has to roll around, and it has to formulate, and it takes effort to create. It's not just automatic. Like you can, if you sit, like you were saying, Amy, if it's spiritual, if you just deny it and shove it right back down and go on with your life as it is, you miss it. You miss the creative, you miss the pivot, you miss the movement towards something new. Creation also takes patience and time. You know, you think about a potter, you know, working the clay. And in this Selah moment, something new is being created, and it's going to take some patience to see how it's going to unfold and see how it changes you. And you step into the effort of moving that way. So often when I'm writing, I will get up and I'll take a walk. So there's something about movement, body movement and creation, and like there's physical movement, but there's also this Selah, like you're moving in a different place in a different way. And creating is beautiful. So even in the sadness of losing your mom, in the drama of, oh my gosh, this marriage is over. I just heard it right now when he said that, or this relationship is over, or life as we know is over right now with the pandemic. Even in all of that, there's something very beautiful about Selah, and there's something creative about it. So I would like to throw that out to the group. What have you seen or are you experiencing right now around the beauty and creativity of a Selah moment?
It's me again. My experience has been since the pandemic is I have not left my house other than going to the store. And for me, it's just been a time of unknowingness and formlessness, just wondering what's next. And I'm just kind of sitting back and letting that come to fruition. So it's really hard, because I don't have a specific goal that I can put my finger on and say, I'm starting that tomorrow, because I'm not sure about that. So I don't know if other people are kind of, I'm in isolation, so I have plenty of time to myself, and I love that, the silence of that. But yeah, I'm just in formlessness right now.
I was talking with some friends about that concept, how sometimes when we don't have anything to do, we get less done. And when we're kind of busy, then we get more done. There's just a principle there. And then we can know about ourselves. That's a knowing of ourselves then. Yeah. I don't have anything brilliant to say about that, except I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think Selah is a holy moment, because you can use that silence to be full of fear and not take any action. But even no action is saying something. And it's also for an insight to occur, we almost have to have that moment of silence to hear our own thoughts, to hear our own soul, to hear any higher other energy that we need to tap into. So I think Selah is a holy moment, very much so. But it can be scary too, because we need to, in my opinion, create a time and a space for that. Otherwise, we're just robots doing whatever the world says we need to do, or what the memos are telling us to do. So we literally have to take responsibility to create that space. And I don't always hear something in that space, but I want to. That's all. Thanks.
I like that. I like that idea of it being holy. It's a gift, and I'm going to get to that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's unnatural. I guess that's what's hitting me when you're saying that. It's unnatural for a lot of people to have a holy moment. Don't know what to do with it. Like, I've been on a treadmill here and I've been doing this, that, and the other thing. What? It's almost like we're afraid to be alone with our thoughts and hear what we're going to hear. Yeah. Any other thoughts about anything beautiful or creative coming out of a Selah moment?
I think sometimes it's just that rawness or that awareness of just pausing. I think as you guys have been speaking, I've thought back on different moments, and I just remember the moment my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and it was just it was like the world stopped, but it was so raw, but it put you in this place of awareness about things that maybe you take for as you were describing. Where do we go from here?
You're cutting out, Jessica.
Yeah, there was a little
And that could be because the storm.
noise. There was a little noise. I sure wouldn't mind, Jessica, if you said that again, because it was like zzz, there was all this. It's doing it again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop does it help if I stop my video?
Oh, I think it does.
Sometimes it's a bandwidth issue.
Okay.
So I'll try to paraphrase what I just said, but as some of you were sharing, I think it's in that moment, it's that awareness and just stopping and it being so raw and kind of this space. And so, similar to others, when I was thinking back on some of the different Selah moments, and one that strikes in my mind when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and it was just this, okay, the world has stopped, and it's raw, it's fresh, it's awareness. You maybe don't take action, but it's causing you to think about things that you don't take the time to think about, and just like with this pandemic and other situations where it's an immediate rawness and awareness, but a time for reflection and to kind of gather on some of the prioritization. And so that's just what I was thinking.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks. I'm glad we got to hear that. There's also a time element to this Selah. How long is it going to last? In the case of this pandemic, we do not know. Remember those early, like right when things shut down, we were really uncertain. Like I couldn't get beyond this moment because last week didn't even matter. And I don't know what's happening next week. And now we're in this moment of, with the pandemic, how long is this going to last? I don't know. And some people want to rush it. They want to get back to normal and open everything up. And I don't even know how long it's useful to last. I was going to say should, but I don't like to use the word should. In the book, she talks about her daughter, Trish. And I think she said, Trish is the conscious mind of the whole family. So Trish like works it out and mourns for a long time or like feels it for the whole family. And so each one of us is going to have a different amount of time too. Jessica, you just talking about your mom getting diagnosed. That's like a kick in the gut, I'm sure. And then you got to go to work on Monday or something. So like, what is this time element? I think it's good to give it its time, its holy time, even if it's uncomfortable. And to me, one more thought is it's such a gift. So in the pandemic situation, in this, what I would call this a Selah moment, this is the time to let our thoughts percolate. A lot of us were sent home. There were entertainment things we couldn't do. There was just time. I suppose there wasn't a lot of time if you have kids at home, but our thoughts could percolate like they've never been able to before. What a gift, because none of us have enough time, or we run around in America saying, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time. So that to me is such a gift and a time to rediscover, this is really what makes me tick. This is really what brings me joy, because all the other stuff was stripped away. So to me, that's a gift. In some ways, I was more connected to friends and family. We have 2 sons, one lives in Canada, and we had Mother's Day, we had his birthday, we had my birthday, and we're having Father's Day. All those would have come and gone and we wouldn't have seen them at all. But this Selah moment has taught us, oh, okay, we can figure out a different way to connect. And so it actually worked out really well. So now we know how to connect when we can't physically be with each other. And then, of course, though, the pandemic, Selah, has brought about all this fear and isolation and financial strain and uncertainty. And these Selahs are a time for self-reflection. That's come up over and over. It's a time where we get to grow. We get to have some time to reflect and grow. We get to stop and think about what is really important and what really matters. These shifts, when you find out about a parent or 9/11, or the moment you realize this relationship is not going to work, it's the shift. It's just a cosmic shift. Okay, it gives me an opportunity to reset. Even though it's painful and difficult, there is going to be a resetting process. If we allow that moment to change us. Again, we can shove it down and deny it and keep our mind, keep binging on Netflix so we don't have to face it. Or we can allow that moment to change us. To me, one more thing is it helps to refine my purpose. Because again, like so much is stripped away and changes. Even in the moment of 9/11, like things changed. So does my purpose still stand? Or was my purpose only having to do with a world where we were secure and we thought that people respected us and we didn't know that we had these kind of enemies? So it helps me look inward at my purpose and figure out, even though this has shifted, is that still solid within me? Or does it need to be tweaked or changed or whatever? So I'm wondering, and I'm no doubt we could talk hours on just this question. What comes up for you and has come up for you in this time of self-reflection? And I know that's pretty vulnerable and pretty raw. Only if you want to share, and based on the comfort you have and everything. But I just thought it would be useful to talk about some of the stuff that's happened to us as we have reflected.
I can share. I'm sorry.
No doubt this is real important. Take a big, deep breath, because I kind of think we need to hear it. Just trying to help.
I have been able to stay away from the fear and from the and it's come up here and there, and but I walk away from it. Like when I hear it in other people, or I'm kind, but I don't accept it, or I change the direction of it. But I feel like, okay, so we had the Star Gathering this weekend. This is the 3rd time I've done the Star Gathering. I come back, it's Monday morning, I'm on my way to work because I'm punctual. And I get there by 6:45. And I'm working from home now. And I thought to myself, you know by now, you need to take Monday off. And, but working from home, I kind of did take Monday off. And I just feel like the bigness of the world and the bigness of what I thought my job has been. I feel like it's my emotions that are big, and that I'm feeling things, and that I don't, you know, stick them in the suitcase and zip it up and shove it in the closet and shut the door, and, you know, and I just think that this is a transformation point for me. And I don't even know what that means or what it is, but I just am, I'm just feeling. And then that the 10 agreements to help you move forward, I'm like, oh my God, that is so powerful. I'm not in the middle of the county where I've got 750 cubicles around me. I can say it out loud. I can feel it. I can react. And so I feel with the race relations, it's just like we're getting to a tipping point, and I don't believe we're going to tip back. Once you get to the tipping point, you have to move forward. It's just the laws. It's the laws of energy, and that the DACA passed this week, and that the GLBT rights. I mean, it's like, where was that hiding? It's like, I didn't know that was on the docket, and both things. And I feel for people that are in a hard spot. I really do. And I try to do what I can to help, but I can't take it on. I can't absorb it. I cannot absorb it. And I just, I feel blessed. I feel blessed. And I just feel blessed.
Thank you. What else is coming up in this time of self-reflection?
If I can talk again, I have Catherine, you know, similar to how you started before. Ellen was talking about some of her past and coming from the Christian background, and that used to be a bit more important to me in my 30s or 40s maybe. But fear keeps coming up to me because I think of, and I think I need to let it go, how long it took for one life, so one person to die when millions have been dying through genocide or whatever acceptable means. And I guess the point is it's happening now. The awareness is changing now. But in more personally, let's say, in my family, the memos that I took on, that I didn't expect to, but it seems I'm trying to just become aware of them so I don't own them and use them to hurt myself. But the memos we had were the fears. And the fears, if you don't follow this protocol and you don't look like this, you don't talk like this, if you don't go to this Catholic school and do all the right things, you won't get to heaven, and people will hate you, and there's no support. And I raised 2 children alone in extreme poverty. I didn't grow up in poverty, but I lived and survived 20 years of very extreme poverty. And I was told I was a bad mom because my son didn't fit into the school system. And there were people that were really good to me too. But those growing pains were really yucky, and I don't know what to do with them to make them into something more positive. And it's taken me so long to get to a point where I feel like I get to choose a little bit now what I want to own and what I want to take into the last 30 years of my life on earth for now. Time scares me a little bit because it takes so long to create a movement of Black Lives Matter. They mattered for millions of years. Why now? And why do I have so many people? I turned off my Facebook thing again to hear so many angry people, so many jealous, so many insecure comments about people who are just creating change and expressing their feelings. And that scares me. So I have a hard time getting through fear. I really do. And maybe I just wanted to leave it out there because I don't want to talk about it a whole lot. I want to pretend I'm stronger than that. And sometimes I am, but fear and how long it takes for change, really good change. So thank you also, Jennifer, you brought up some really good things. As a white female, I've had a lot of benefits in this world, lots of benefits that I don't even know about. So I don't have anything to complain about, but I think fear can drive people to do stupid things. So I want to often feel I need to keep fear in check, really keep it in check, and I'm going to pass.
Well, we need to close pretty soon. Any last words, Cathy?
Just thank you. It's so fun to sit in the middle of this, and thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, what a blessing. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I just want you to listen to one thing. I always want to end. And this comes from Sophie Bashford. You've heard me. I've been a fan of hers. Bashford. And she sent, I think Jean Cunningham sent this to me from Sophie. Are you listening to the awakened woman now? These women are showing up daily, boldly, and unapologetically, claiming our own news feed that is too damn powerful to ignore. They are sharing truths now, deeper than ever before. Learn from them, transform from them. So come now with a humble heart, a teachable heart, and recognize how the goddess continues to call you home. There is a band of women present on this earth who are carrying now the flaming torches for the evolution of humanity. These women are rare, unique, highly crafted jewels of the ancient feminine spirit. These women possess more courage, more resilience, and perseverance than is fathomable. These women have silently walked through thousands upon thousands of years to find themselves back here on earth, charged with the task of reawakening the divine feminine soul to all of humanity and to the earth. Emerging one by one from the etheric temples of Shakti in all of her forms, the awakened women now plant their naked feet on the barren soil of earth, glistening with the radiant dew of communion with divine love for their bodies that are supple and free-flowing. They are feeling the free-flowing kundalini of the energy going up their spinal column. Their third eyes are now unashamed, looking forward with passion, hands moving spontaneously to touch the wounds of Gaia's soul and to love her back to life. The awakened women do not announce themselves as the saviors of this time. They mostly get on with their immense workload with devotion, discipline, and immeasurable commitment to the mission. When these women heal themselves, they ignite a domino effect of healing and transformation for generations of females, both past and future. Not only that, the innate spiritual power of which these women hold and behold, that they are now devoting their entire selves to serving the high feminine. This is the energy, so immensely creative, illuminating, so alchemizing, that these women now are pouring sacred intention into themselves, into their wholeness, and into the entire universe. If you have been pulled into the vibrational web of an awakened woman's energy field, you will experience change. So I thank you. And just being awakened and unbridled with your energy and being true and honest, people feel that from us. They feel that and they want that awaken. And so
who wrote that?
Sophie Bashford, Bashford.
Thank you.
Yeah, great, great. So thank you all for showing up. Keep on showing up. We're here to continue to support you. And just to let you know that we're having a community Reiki at 6 p.m. right after this. I tell people you don't have to be on the, you'll never see my face on it. You'll just see my name, because I take my computer out in the living room and I put it on and so the Reiki comes through my computer into my living room, into my husband, into me. And then I just shut it off when everybody's done. So you're welcome back at 6 o'clock with Reiki to join us. And also next week, we will be doing our final book study. And our special guests are going to be Amy and Janelle. These wonderful women that we're bringing back. So please join us, be your authentic self and live your authentic yeses and your authentic nos, and let's just brilliantly shine that forth upon the planet. So thank you, Cathy. I appreciate your yes for showing up. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Catherine, your questions were so thought-provoking, and man, you covered the whole book. It was very thorough. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.